Hello, folks. Welcome to the Green Dialogues podcast. My name is Sam Ifeanyi and I am your host. The Green Dialogues is a platform to present expert analysis and insights into burning issues focused on environmental stewardship, green growth, corporate sustainability, and climate action. This podcast shall focus majorly on interventions, initiatives, and solutions. With me is Dr. Fidelis Anokwa, a water expert and retired permanent secretary, Ministry of Sustainability of Cross River State, Nigeria. He's going to be speaking with us on the backdrop of the recently concluded sector ministers meeting in Indonesia on water and sanitation. Thank you, Dr. Fidelis, for taking our time to speak with us. Moving further, sir, how, in your opinion, what impact really do these meetings bring to the table, and especially to the communities?
Thank you so much for this question. I think, in my own very sincere opinion, this gathering have been useful, but the challenge you have is implementing them, the outcomes back home. Back home, the challenge is possibly resources and, of course, human commitment to having it done. Our resolve to have it done well is the challenge. Our resolve to access resources for doing it is another challenge. As for the gathering of the meeting have been very useful, but when we come back, we hardly ever stick to the agreements in some of those meetings. No.
Doc, you just mentioned one very salient point, which is implementing those strategies that have been discussed at such fora in country. Now, with regards to that, where do you actually see our leadership, basically the political will to implement these strategies? Are we looking at a failure of political will, or are we being too harsh with regards to the challenges of implementation?
I think the issue of a priority. What is the priority of the political setup in an area? What do they really feel is good enough for them to do? You recall that most of our politicians want to see things they can show. I know this things with water issue cannot show it, but it reflects in the health status of the people. Okay. And politicians want to say, I did this, I did that. That's what they are more interested in. When it comes to building the health of the people, they cannot show it. They cannot display it and say, I did this, I did that. And that's where the problem is. So until we start looking at the people being a factor in the result we get in other areas, our people will keep suffering and suffering and suffering. So the problem basically is that the things they do are not tangible. These things are not tangible, so they don't feel it. Okay. And when they don't feel it, they pay a finger to them.
Speaking about intangibility of actions, is it impossible to hold executive ministers or those in charge of implementation of such sanitation and water for strategies accountable for their ineptitude or incompetence?
You know, we don't have a system where high up officers are held accountable. We don't have such a system. It's difficult to hold the minister or the governor to account for things he or she ought to do. It's difficult. And because this kind of system we operate doesn't give room for such, it makes it absolutely difficult to hold them to account for it. That's what the can only be done, and they go free with it. Our system doesn't have proviso for the next level. You have to keep pressure on the higher authorities and let them understand the need to have these things done. That's why we can just putting pressure on them. That's all. Because we cannot force them to do it, but putting pressure on them, I'm sure God will touch them to say, do this. Consumer awareness. Let them understand the need for some of these things to be done. They'll come with touchdown, they will change their heart. But for accountability, I think it's a very difficult thing.
Okay. And then when we're talking about holding the government to account, how about even the communities themselves and as individuals? Do we have a form of community engagement or even individual orientation with regards to sanitation and ensuring that at least even the little water that is available is properly utilized?
In Nigeria, we like the stick. Somebody stand by with a stick to cause it to take an action. We don't like doing things on our own, even when you know the value of those things. Communities are the receiving end, but they put in some little effort, and when they see that the effort is not paying, they just leave it.
Okay.
But if the tempo of awareness is scaled out seriously across board, everybody will be forced to do what he or she ought to do. But if the tempo dies down, everybody go ahead and mind his or her business and leave some basic things that will contribute to the collective well-being of the people undone. So to my mind, it's a question that we need to reawaken our consciousness to some of these things because they are important for healthy living. Okay. Very, very important for healthy living. For you to achieve any other thing, first and foremost, be healthy.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no other thing you can achieve without being healthy first.
That's very true.
The important thing to be healthy. So if you are working the conscience of everyone, including all the executives, wherever they are at every level, that health is important. And these small things we do contribute to building up our health. And then people begin to take it more seriously.
Okay, wonderful, sir. Talking about this orientation, I've been several times to Cross River State, specifically Calabar, and the city is seen as one of the cleanest in the country, especially with regards to the orientation of the people. And also, incidentally, I think the very first ODF-free community was Obanliku in Cross River State. So how was this consciousness able to be roused? How did it become embedded, within the consciousness of the people in those communities?
We had a collaborative effort. We worked with some NGOs that committed and dedicated to see that those things happen. And government was at first sight very much interested in it and gave their backing and support for those things to happen. And it happened. In fact, we have more than 6 LGAs who are ODF free today. More than 6 LGAs who are ODF free. No, but the issue is that it's the sustenance of that temple that is the issue. Okay. To sustain the temple is always a challenge. And that boils down to availability of resources to continually keep those things going. You can really not bite beyond what you can chew.
That is true. Yeah. But then when we talk about sanitation and water, we shouldn't really be talking so much about resources because sanitation, the adverse effects of sanitary conditions is basically an epidemic.
Sure.
And when we talk of water, is a statutory right, but we do know that in most recent times people have awoken to the understanding that water might actually need to be paid for. So in that sense, are we still talking about cost, or is it just an inability to understand the basic strategies to deploy to ensure compliance?
You see, let me let you know that before you ask somebody to pay for water, you have to produce the water.
Yes, sir.
You have to make the water available. And making it available is a challenge. I need resources to be able to make that water available. So apart from the issue that people have this feeling that these are supposed to be government free gestures to communities, people to make those free gestures is a challenge because it involves a lot of water, money to actually produce a good potable water. And that also is something that government sometimes hesitate because they cannot see they cannot see the flow back on the investment. Because people think, government supplies us water, if they need to supply us water. But government can no longer do that freely. Cannot do it. Okay. But if people pay a little bit so there's a recovery of investment on that to sustain the process. And that also boils down to creating the temple of awareness. People understand what it is, how it is. Okay. That gone are the days that those things are issued free. But government today cannot give it free any longer because those are not available as they were before.
Wonderful.
So most of this things boils down to maybe town hall meetings, having stakeholders engagement to sensitize people on the know to know most of the things in there. When people don't know, they will not act.
Okay. Thank you so very much, sir. One last question before we wrap up this session. We have so many of the ministers being from this high sector ministers meeting in Indonesia, and there seems to be a lot of interest and expectation from the meeting. Because we are going to be having, apart from those in water, we are going to be having the finance ministers, the environment ministers, those focused on climate change and development. Having been there, sir, in your experience, what are the likely expectations? Not really the expectations. We all understand the expectations, but how do we actually see these expectations playing out, in our communities and getting embedded as impactful as impacts?
Yeah, two things that ought to be done. At the end of each of these meetings, you have to bring it down to the subnational. To subnational, and then let it be a collaboration between the subnational and the national on the way out. Okay. So implementation is not done at the national, it's done at the subnational.
Yes, sir.
So the subnational has to be carried along adequately. Okay. With a good coordination, this thing can be done and done well. It is not just enough that we fly out to meetings and then at the end of the day, nothing is shown on ground. At the end of that meeting, come back and certify what do we do? What are the strategies to scale down to the communities that need them?
Yes, sir.
There has to be a workout strategy. Like the workout strategy was implemented. That is why the communities are part of it. So whatever has to do with water and sanitation, you know that water is not provided by the federal government. No. The states are the one that provide water. So whatever decision taken at the national or taken at any meeting outside the country, by the time they come back, let them come and say, how does the state benefit and provide these resources? If the state complain of it, let the federal support the input. Let people will have the necessary money. We logistics. How do you go to the community? How do you do that? So we need collaboration at all levels to have this thing implemented properly on ground. Without this collaboration, it will be difficult to have results on ground.
Professor, thank you.
Oh, there you have it. Thank you, Dr. Anukwa, for taking our time to speak with us today. We hope that this discussion will actually be able to crystallize some issues and also drive more potent discourse on these matters moving forward. Thank you very much. And that was our very first episode. We look forward to interacting with you all, presenting your factual-based viewpoints, and receiving your feedbacks. You can reach us via WhatsApp on 0812 343 2091 or by email, greendialogues@environmentafricamag.com. And lest I forget, the Green Dialogues Business Forum shall be coming up on the 29th of June in Lagos. And the Green Dialogues Business Forum and the Green Dialogues podcast are both campaigns, projects put together by Environment Africa magazine. So we look forward to seeing you at the Green Dialogues Business Forum on the 29th of June, where top environmental professionals in Nigeria shall be unveiled. We are talking about professionals who have contributed immensely to the development of the environmental sector in Nigeria. Do not miss out on this. Thank you for listening once again, and have a pleasant week.